Good evening, everyone. Wekiva High School welcomes you to Mustang Arena for the quarterfinal round of the 2022 OCPS Boys Basketball Metro West Championship. The Titans versus the Mustangs. Starting on the court for Olympia, we have Jizzle James, Claudner Pierre, Josh Mayo, Dylan Lightus, and Kevin Charles. The Mustangs, Malachi Hampton, Jamaric Hammond, Isaiah Bannister, Kerry Davis, and Vosi Prophet.
And right off the bat, Olympia making their presence felt. Score the deuce, +1. So Neil Fisher along with Mark Barchi, thank you for joining us. This is the first round, the second games played by both these teams of the 2022 and the first ever Metro Hoop Fest. Both these teams won last night to get to today's game. The winner takes on takes on the winner of Windermere and Edgewater tomorrow. And so Wekiva, with its first possession, goes to work. Underneath, that's Prophet, unable to get the shot off, and we come back the other way. Olympia, of course, under Rob Gordon, he's very quickly turned this program into a state powerhouse in his third season, as that is Evans driving and drawing the foul and committing the foul. So Wekiva getting the first turnover of the ball game. And we'll see if they can tie this game up. This is Jamaric Hammond, the senior guard, bringing the ball up. Going one-on-one against Jizzle James. Out to Prophet, extended left. Hammond, top of the key to Prophet. One-on-one against Charles. Back out to Hampton. Over to Davis, who drains the rain. And we are tied at 3-all. Back the other way. Long-range attempt from James beyond the arc. Pulling it down into the middle. That's Evans who draws the foul while attacking. So at the line is Evans. And he sinks the first to put Olympia ahead 4-3. And we got changes already, not even 2 minutes in. Both free throws good, and Olympia back out to a 5-3 lead. Inbound to Hammond, and he is whacked on the inbound pass. So Wekiva coming in at 6-7. They're looking to get their record of at 500 for the first time this season. They have won 3 of their last 4, and Olympia in the meantime comes in again. They've become a state powerhouse under the leadership of Rob Gordon in only his third season. They are 11-2. They started off 10-0, but they have lost 2 of their last 3 as Hammond launches short. And that ball's going to go out of bounds. Sean Owens allowing it to bounce out of bounds. So Olympia will go back to work. Josh Meal, top of the key, down low. Olympia looking for that opportunity to get inside, kicks out, and the turnover. Wekiva's defense certainly showing up strong tonight. Of course, last night Wekiva took a victory against Ocoee, and that game they started off scoring the first 10 points, but then they had to rally at the end as Davis drives through that lane, back out to Hampton, rattles in and out. And doing Windex work and going bank is Doucette. So the offensive rebound paying dividends for Wekiva, and we are tied at 5-5. So tray launched, no dice for Mio, and Hammond will bring that ball up the other way. It's Davis, can't get the tray to drop, too short. And we continue to run up and down the court. Transition, the name of the game for both these teams. So 4.5 in the first quarter. The pass underneath, back out, open shot for Mio. And that will not go. Back the other way. Hammond takes the second of the two passes. And give him the charge as well.
Jamaric Hammond is called on his second personal foul. Charge taken by Kevins Charles. Turns the ball over to the Titans.
So talked about Olympia in only its third year under Rob Gordon. They've become a state powerhouse. They come in 11-2. They are ranked 44th nationally. No dice on the tray for James. And back the other way. Profit launches and splash!
Profit for three!
So Wekiva, after a bit of a rough start, turning the ball over, is shooting the ball well. 3 of 6 from the field. And they are now up 8-5. First lead on the game for them at 3:30. The reverse underneath, and that's going to be a charge on Pierre.
Foul is called against number 4, Claude Pierre, on the offensive charge. His first, the team's third. Abia Charles into the game for the Mustangs. Again, we want to welcome you to Mustang Arena, the voice you've been hearing for most of the broadcast, Neil Fisher from the Apopka Chief. My name is Mark Barchi, the voice of the Mustangs and Sports Information Director here at Wekiva, as we get a foul called against number 23, Sean Owens. That's his first personal foul, the team's fourth. I've been here the whole time, a little late joining the broadcast as an announcer because we have a little bit of an unusual situation going on here as we get another foul called. Foul called against Titans number 12, LaFord Thomas, his first, the team's fifth. You'll notice that Wekiva is the host school, but they are wearing the dark jerseys, which is backwards of how intuitively it should be for a high school basketball game. Home wears white. The reason is because Wekiva is the 7th seed in this tournament, and Olympia is the 2nd seed. So as the higher seed, Olympia is quote-unquote home. However, in the interest of not confusing the daylights out of all of our fans and you, our viewers, we have put Wekiva in the home position on the scoreboard. However, that makes everything backwards. So we have now updated our graphics to compensate for that. Thank you for your patience while we did that.
In the meantime, that's James who makes the withdrawal.
Chisel James adds 2 for the Titans.
Cuts the lead to 8-7. Wekiva leading for about a minute and a half now. About half a minute. As Mark just mentioned, they are in the black jersey. This is Livingston, the freshman, handing off to Profit. And he's going to drive and run into a wall. James getting his hand, but also touching body. And so
Foul called against Titans, number 12, Lavord Thomas, his second personal foul, the team's sixth. Mustangs ball at the opposing baseline.
So Doucette takes the inbound pass. That's Hampton. Down low underneath to Davis.
Blocked and rebounded by Charles. And now
stolen. Nice defensive work by Livingston. Coast to coast.
Darius Livingston steals a Mustang layup.
So only the second turnover for Olympia. Actually, both teams with only 2 turnovers, but that was a very timely turnover. Drop back by James. No dice. Out of bounds. That was number 31, skying for the rebound. And it'll remain with Olympia, trailing 8-7. So I mentioned before, Olympia, as we get a loose ball and a scramble, is ranked 44th nationally.
Held ball, possession, Mustangs.
An 11-2 record. They got off to a 10-0 start. They are also ranked number 6 in the state of Florida, all classifications, and number 3 in Class 7A. So again, the third year under Rob Gordon, one of the more interesting coaches to watch. Certainly he knows how to build a winner very quickly. He's been at several schools over the last 15 years or so, but he's most known for being quite the animated coach on that sideline.
We'll pause here to clean up the key, make sure it's not too slick. And meanwhile, of course, we'll remind you that Wekiva defeated Ocoee last night to earn their spot here in the quarterfinal. Olympia, as the number 2 seed, got a first-round bye, so this is their first game of the Metro Conference Championships.
And now Olympia's going to go to a full court, man-to-man. That's Profit, one-on-one with Lightus. Profit beats Lightus, gets it beyond court, but now, now a turnover. Hammond, right place, right time.
No basket, foul prior to the attempt.
Okay, so I saw the refs wave the basket off. It was because it was before the shot, as you
foul
just heard
called
Mark
against
say.
number 23, Sean Owens. His second personal foul, the team's 7th, and it puts Wekiva into bonus.
But Wekiva will get the free throws. Hammond at the line.
At the line, shooting 1-1. Number 3, Jamaric Hammond.
So Wekiva, on the other hand, they come in. They have won 3 of their last 4 games. Their only loss was to Evans on Monday, as Hampton drops the first free throw attempt for Wekiva, and that puts them up 11-7. So Wekiva certainly a team also looking to get to 500 for the first time this season. They come in 6-7. So a team right on the verge of being able to put together a solid run as we enter the last third of the season. Of course, they were without Malachi Hampton for 7 games, and since his return, this is the 5th game since his return, you can definitely see a difference, just the eyeball test. A much smoother running team, and of course, I always bring that up because Coach Lubin at the beginning of the season said, Jamaric Hammond, who just dropped the second free throw to give Wekiva a 12-7 lead, is your engine, and Hampton is the transmission. And transmissions is what allows your engine to work very smoothly and cohesively. High RPM, you want a lower gear ratio. As James looked for the shot, couldn't get it. And going back to the engine and transmission comparison, the higher the RPM, the lower the gear shift, and the lower the RPM, the higher the gear shifts.
Foul is called against Titans, number 21, Kevin Charles on the offense. That's his first, the team's 8th. And correction, that was a loose ball foul, so it will allow the Mustangs to shoot bonus free throws. At the line, shooting 1-1, Avia Charles.
And to finish my thought, Mark, pretty much Hampton provides that ability for Wekiva to shift between RPMs. And Iron Kind to Charles. So Vasi Profit, the sophomore, opened the scoring for Wekiva. A second free throw, no good. Snagging that rebound is Outlaw. He was your leading scorer last night with 19 points, has 3 points so far tonight, the leading scorer. And now Olympia, again, ranked 44th nationally in the Max Prep rankings, goes to work. The number 2 seed in the Metro Hoops Fest tournament. At the top is Jizzle James, spins against Hammond, whistle, and the travel.
Jizzle James called for traveling. Mustangs ball. Checking into the game for Wekiva, Darius Livingston, Kerry Davis, and Pete Lewis.
So Jizzle James ranked among all of the major recruiting polls, individual players. Some good defense from Hammond, though, to force him to turn that ball over. Olympia remaining in man-to-man, and now the interception for Pierre. Just stepped right in front of it. And down the other way, no dice. Hampton, just spoke about him. Rebound all the way out to Lewis, who makes the withdrawal.
Davis for 2.
And back the other way, 40 seconds remaining in this first half. Wekiva with the 15-7 lead.
And I'll point out that this game is so far turning into an upset. Olympia heavily favored in this contest as the number 2 seed. Wekiva comes in as a dark horse, number 7, and this was not expected to go this way by most objective observers.
Yeah, and it's been the shooting from the floor, 6 of 10 from Wekiva. Actually, 6 of 9. 12.5 seconds remaining. So James averaging over 20 points a game. The highly recruited, again, in all the major rankings for recruiting. Drives that lane, slides off, can't get the rebound to drop, and that will bring the first quarter to an end.
That takes us to the end of the first period. The Mustangs out to an 8-point advantage. 15-7 is your score at the end of the opening 8 minutes. Back with more from Mustang Arena in a moment.
Wekiva 15, Olympia 7 as we begin the second quarter. This is the first round, or if you prefer the second round of games, there is a play-in round of the Metro Hoop Fest. And this, yes, is an actual, even though it's not called the championship tournament, this is for the championship of the Metro Conference, bragging rights at stake. Olympia in the white jersey, that's Jizzle. Passes over to Lightus, no dice, gets his own rebound, out to the corner, the launch, again short, underneath the basket, that's Pierre shaking things up, but too aggressive as he commits the foul.
Foul called against Titans number 4, Claudner Pierre, his second, the team's 9th. The Mustangs continue into bonus. Kevin Charles checks into the game for Olympia first. At the line, shooting 1-1, will be Kerry Davis.
And Mark, as you just heard Mark mentioned, Wekiva's in the bonus, and they have 9 fouls, which means they're not just going to be in the bonus, but double bonus. And we're just starting the second quarter, 17 seconds in.
Davis fires the first, and he earns a second. Returning to the game for the Mustangs, Malachi Hampton and Isaiah Bannister.
So Olympia, the number 2 seed, they also come in ranked nationally 44th according to the Max Prep rankings, 6th in all classifications in the state and 3rd in Class 7A, and they find themselves trailing by 10 points. So certainly would be an upset, at least on paper. and that has been dictated by Wekiva's strong shooting. 5 of 9 from the field so far, 1 quarter in. So Jizzle goes to work. Hampton trying to guard him. Shakes off that pick, and now Jizzle with the traveling. That's the second time, actually
Traveling
third time.
Mustangs ball.
Third time Jizzle, who, again, we mentioned, is ranked in the top 100 among all the major individual player recruiting polls and averaging over 22 points per game, has traveled against that Wekiva defense.
So I talked a little bit about this last night as we get a foul called likely against Olympia. Foul is called against Titans, number 3, Chance Harris, his second, the team's 10th. The Mustangs in double bonus now. Darius Livingston shooting 2. So as I mentioned last night on our broadcast during the play-in game, this is a new concept this year for both boys and girls basketball to have a tournament rather than declaring a Metro champion simply by the regular season record. Up until this point, the way a Metro champion was declared was to have each team play each other team in their half of the Metro Conference, and whoever had the best record among those games at the end of the season was declared the Metro Conference champion.
Yeah,
well,
very much like they do in college athletics.
And so that was working fine for a while, but a couple of things have changed recently that have made that system not really work anymore. First of all, the Metro Conference has grown. Orange County added Windermere a few years ago. They added Horizon and Lake Buena Vista this year.
22 teams in total.
Right. They're planning on adding a couple more schools over on the Lake Noda side of town in the next couple of years. And so as the number of schools, and even if you cut the district in half, as they did many years ago, it still gets to be a little bit untenable, and now we're going to get an offensive charge call. Foul called against number 1, Joey Evans, on the charge. That's his second. No bonus shots for offensive fouls, but it turns the ball over to the Mustangs.
7th turnover for Olympia.
So as the coaches thought about how to handle this, remember, you're only allowed to schedule 25 games total over the course of the entire season.
Yeah, that's
now with 11
FHSAA rules.
Correct. Now with 11 teams on each half of the district, 10 out of those 25 games would have to be dedicated to Metro opponents, and you would only have freedom to schedule the other 15. In addition to that, the FHSAA a few years ago made a change to the way the playoffs are seeded. They are no longer seeded by district record. Instead, they are seeded by Max Prep's power rankings. And if you are compelled to schedule every team in the Metro Conference, even though some of those games may not be competitive, you can win a game and still have your ranking suffer. If you're a top team and you have your eye on getting top seeding in the Final Four, you want a tough schedule that's going to pump your ranking up as high as possible. You don't want to be spending a lot of goodwill of your season, a lot of your rankings points on playing weaker Metro opponents. So by switching from the old system to the new system, now you're only required to play the 4 games, up to 4 games, in the Metro Conference tournament instead of 10, and most of those games should be competitive in people who are in pretty much your weight class.
And by the way, there is another game after this one taking place from Mustang Arena. Dr. Phillips will take on West Orange and score the deuce
Basket
for Litus.
by Jackson Outlaw.
So that cuts the lead to 19-9, 2 minutes into the second quarter. That's only the 3rd field goal scored by Olympia. So some good defense for Wekiva. Float the deuce.
Mary Davis for 2.
Wekiva continues to shoot the ball well. They've shot over 50% for the entire game, and now they force an 8th turnover for Olympia. And Mark, I got to tell you, I'm very surprised that not so much that Wekiva's ahead, a 21-9 lead, but the way they're doing it, Wekiva, of course, does shoot the ball well most of the time, but the turnovers, 8 turnovers, as I just mentioned, has really spearheaded that 12-point lead. Again, Olympia 44th ranked nationally. You don't expect to see those turnovers. Splash!
Three for Boise Profit from Jamaric Hammond. Well, Neil, if you can't say anything else, you have to say Wekiva's having a better second quarter than they did yesterday when they sent in.
I was going to bring that up.
2 points for the entire 8 minutes. They sent mannequins back onto the court from the timeout.
Yeah, last night against Ocoee, the play-in round, Wekiva won, and they took a 10-0 lead, and then an 18-0 run by Ocoee. And that's what Mark was talking about in that second quarter. So certainly righting the ship tonight as they not only take the lead into the second quarter but continue to build on it up to 15 now, 3 minutes into the second quarter from Mustang Arena. And 5:09 remaining in the second quarter. This is the first round of the Metro Hoops Fest. Basically, it's a conference championship tournament. They're just calling it the Hoops Fest. And Wekiva, the home team, seeded 7th with a 24-9 lead over the second-seeded Olympia Titans and 44th ranked nationally according to the Max Prep rankings.
Of course, last night's game Wekiva hosted because they were the higher seed, and that was the agreement at the beginning when they set this up, that for the first play-in round, the higher seed would host wherever that might be.
And that's Olympia with possession. Excuse me, Mark.
Tonight's game is preset. Wekiva was always going to host this game no matter who was in it, but fortune favors the bold. Wekiva is able to host their own game.
Yeah, and again, if you just tuned in, turnovers has been the story of the game. Olympia with 8 compared to 3 for Wekiva, and you don't have to be the proverbial basketball guru to understand when you're turning the ball over, you're giving good looks to your opponent, and Wekiva's taking advantage, shooting over 50% since the tip-off. So this is Josh Mio at the top of the key, one-on-one with Profit, back underneath.
Good look, and everything will go in. Held ball. Possession, Mustangs. So Wekiva gets the benefit of the possession arrow there as Hampton gets knotted up under the basket. Trouble in the backcourt. And the turnover as it goes off of Charles's foot with a little help from Sean Owens.
So stay tuned if you love basketball, high school basketball. This certainly is one of those days you look forward to. We'll have a second game, West Orange, Dr. Phillips. Meanwhile, the spin by Outlaw runs into a wall. Great interior defense by Wekiva. Once again, great team defense. Good moving back and forth, rotating among your defensive assignments by Wekiva inside that paint. Hammond now gives the ball up to Charles, back to Doucette. 4 minutes in the second quarter. Profit launches, doesn't connect rim. And good
rebounded with his foot on the line is Kevin Charles, and so that'll be Wekiva ball.
Yeah, I was going to say, good rebound for Charles, for Charles in particular, the fact that he was positioned himself correctly but wasn't aware of where he was on the floor. So Wekiva catches the break, and they will go back to work. Again, the 15-point lead. Hammond launches. Sauce!
Jamaric Hammond for 3.
And Wekiva continues to lay the sauce on that sandwich with 3.5 remaining. They are shooting well, over 50%. Since the tip-off, Olympia again, ranked 44th in the nation according to the Max Prep ranks, and they are the second seed in this Metro Hoops Fest. They have not come out and certainly played as well as I've seen them a couple of other times on defense in terms of allowing open men and open looks for Wekiva. They go back to work, a quick hand, and possession will remain with Olympia. But again, when you knock that ball out, the defensive team knocks that ball out, it disrupts the offense, the rhythm, and the flow of the offensive team. They have to reset. And that's been a big problem for Olympia on offense. They've just not been able to really find a rhythm. They've taken shots. Field goal attempts are almost even. 17 for Olympia and 16 for Wekiva. But Wekiva certainly has had the better looks at those baskets. A lot more shots where they've been leaning forward towards the basket, and a lot more transition opportunities for Wekiva. So right now we have a stoppage. Refs conferring with both of the coaches. Mark?
Technical foul for illegal substitution is assessed against Olympia. Jamaric Hammond will shoot free throws for Wekiva.
So Hammond will go to the line with 5 points. And again, this is more of a certainly a black and white, a mental mistake, Mark, than what we've seen on the court.
Yeah, the issue was that Cameron James checked into the game for the first time on the previous dead ball, and he is registered as number 32 on the roster, but is wearing number 31 tonight.
Yeah, and I always say, Mark, the free throws is one thing, but I think what really hurts the defense, or the team that commits the technical, is that after the free throws, the team that shoots the free throws then gets possession of the ball, so they can get 2 scores for the price of 1, and that also builds some momentum. Wekiva's had that momentum since this game is tipped off, an 18-point lead, and now they can continue to build on that momentum. This is Hammond, top of the key as we drop under 3 minutes to Charles. Hammond, full court, man-to-man for Olympia. Hampton, short, and tracking down that loose ball is Lightus. Good rebounding job, but again, saw that on the last possession.
Out of bounds, Mustangs ball.
Good rebounding, but not aware of where floor location. So now 10 turnovers for Olympia, and I know that cannot make Coach Gordon happy. Again, Coach Gordon has coached at a number of schools the last 15 years or so. He has quickly turned all those teams into winning programs. At Olympia, turned them into a state powerhouse. No dice on the tray for Livingston. And one of his, you don't see coaches that turn programs around quickly within a couple years. Those teams do not turn the ball over, and they do not make mental mistakes often.
And there's one right there as Cameron James just lost the ball trying to go head-to-head with Hammond. Flew out of bounds into the official's arms for a turnover. So Wekiva somewhat squandering the technical foul opportunity as Hammond was 0 for 2 at the line, and then they couldn't convert on the ensuing possession either. Here's a steal out of bounds, which doesn't really count, but it'll be a deflection in the books there for Lavord Thomas.
So 2:09 remaining in the first half. As Livingston will set the offense at the top. Livingston, the freshman guard, and that has certainly helped out Jamaric Hammond, who takes most of the point guard. No dice. Skied by Charles, coming back the other way. And another turnover. The turnovers continue to mount for Olympia. And I mentioned you can look at the score. That's the general fact, a 27-9 lead. Wekiva breaking a 5-5 tie 3 minutes into the game, and they have led ever since then. But if you look at the specifics, it's the turnovers, which are an incredible surprise. 12 for Olympia compared to only 4 for Wekiva.
So now Wekiva ends up on the wrong end. There was some contact mid-court, no call.
So 12-5 now, the turnover count.
And so Hammond ended up losing the ball. So a turnover for Wekiva. Olympia takes over. And yeah, Olympia just has had a couple of unforced errors with the turnovers on the last couple of possessions. Maybe they're just not used to wearing white jerseys and forget who they're throwing it to.
Well, white jerseys on the road.
On the road, yes, of course. And that's blocked by Hampton, picked up by Livingston in transition. Probably outthought the room there and tried to get a fancy bounce pass into Malachi Hampton, who was getting double-teamed, meanwhile, by Charles and James.
Yeah, Wekiva actually will catch a break. They will maintain possession.
Yeah, frankly, they're lucky they didn't lose that ball to a steal.
Yeah, that was some poor play, some poor ball handling all the way around.
Now we get a delay of game warning called against Hammond. So first one's free. Second one will cost you a technical foul in the same game.
1.5 remaining. This is Davis, steps back. Stop, pop, and drop.
Kerry Davis on the Mustang jump shot.
And a 20-point lead for Wekiva. Again, Mark, I know I'm beating this like a dead horse, but it sticks out like the proverbial sore thumb. The 20-point lead. There's an answer from Mayo.
3-point basket by Josh Mayo. Yeah, I don't think that anybody, objective or otherwise, would have predicted that Wekiva would go into the locker room with a 20-point or near 20-point lead.
They're down to 17 now. And Wekiva an opportunity to get that ball back up. And I think one thing that we're seeing Wekiva do a lot better as they're looking to win their 4th out of 5 games is they're choosing their spots for transition and running up and down much better. That's Doucette, off-balance shot, couple of opportunities, ball out of bounds, and Wekiva will maintain possession, Doucette being helped up by Livingston.
Yeah, LaVord Thomas was the last one to touch that before it went out. Checking into the game for the Mustangs, number 34, Joshua Griffin. And Isaiah Bannister is able to get off on his own power, but he is limping a little bit. He was clearly tweaked on that play as he went out of bounds.
And the other thing about Wekiva's offense is they're just taking much better shots. Talked to Coach Lubin after the victory against, talked to him earlier this week. Again, Wekiva looking to win 4th game out of 5 opportunities. Hampton with the ball, and it's going to be swiped away. Olympia an opportunity to go the other way. Livingston intercepting, and there's the turnover again, 10 seconds remaining. Coach Lubin said that, yes, you can get a shot, especially if you're in transition, but they're not looking for the first shot. They're looking for the better shot and taking that extra pass. Being inside the paint or the location doesn't necessarily make for a better shot. What makes for a better shot as we get the foul is how you're being covered.
Foul called against Mustangs number 1, Darius Livingston. His first, the team's 6th. So that will give Olympia bonus on the next one, but not likely to get there with 5 seconds on the clock.
So a lot of action, a lot of moving up and down the court between the 2 free throw lines, but when it's all said and done, no points. And Olympia has possession of the ball. 5 seconds. Hammond intercepts. Can he keep it in bounds? No, not quite. A for effort. Unfortunately, could not control his body, and he falls out of bounds. So 0.8 of a second remaining. Good news for Olympia is that they will keep possession of the ball, which means Wekiva can't score, and the 17-point lead won't grow more, but not really much you can do with 0.8 of a second. So again, into halftime, turnovers the story. Olympia committing 13 compared to 4 for Wekiva. Easier shots for Wekiva, shooting over 50%, and the 17-point lead from Mustang Arena, first round of the Metro Hoops Fest 2021 edition. about to start the second half. This is the first round of the 2022 and first ever Metro Hoops Fest. Basically, this is a Metro Conference Championship tournament. Wekiva, the home team, in the black jerseys, taking on 7-seeded, taking on the Olympia Titans in the white jerseys, and Wekiva with a surprising 29-12 lead. Again, Olympia mentioned this throughout the first half as a turnover right at the beginning. Foul. Olympia comes in 11-2, a 10-0 start as they go to the full court trap. Ranked 44th nationally according to the Max Prep rankings, 6th in state of Florida, all classifications, and 3rd in Class 7A. And you don't have to be the proverbial basketball guru to understand how Wekiva got that lead. Talked about it in the first half as Wekiva. Can they take advantage of that turnover? No, in and out. Rattles out, Olympia brings it down. Field goal percentage is 41-15 in favor of Wekiva, and that has been facilitated by 13 Olympia turnovers compared to only 5 for Wekiva. Other major stat, rebounds, 15 all for both teams. So certainly, as the ball is launched by Mio and score the tray.
For Josh Mio.
So both teams have actually taken almost the same amount of shots, 22 for Wekiva. Their 9 of 22 is profit. Won't increase that stat, but Hampton doing Windex work, snagging the Roos ball, back to profit. Can't get it to drop a second time. And 20 shots for Olympia, but again, a 13-5 advantage in turnovers. Olympia with that 13. And when you're turning the ball over, that means you're not getting good shots. Your opponent is.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article today about how a lot of high schools have taken a page out of the NBA playbook as we get a 3 from Mio. A lot of high schools have taken a page out of the NBA playbook that you do either threes or layups. And those are your two types of shots that you select from. And now we're starting to get into more high school programs having a sort of renaissance of the mid-range shot. We've seen that kind of fall out of favor at the higher levels of basketball, and now there's starting to be some analytical data that supports the idea that if you can get a good shot at mid-range, you don't necessarily have to do either threes or layups.
So Olympia starting their comeback, see if they can sustain it. No, they're not. Score the bank on the rebound.
Bannister with the putback.
So Wekiva, that's actually their first basket of the second half. Of course, on the last possession, they had 3 shots. So again, mentioned Olympia coming into this game with an 11-2 record as Mio with the fade drops the deuce.
Mio for 2. 11 points in the books for him now as he gets into double figures. Getting double teamed in the backcourt. Hammond in trouble. Profit bails him out. He's got to get out of that backcourt, and they do not. 10 seconds in the backcourt. Titans ball.
So Olympia has lost 2 of their last 3, and they are ranked 44th nationally. Keep bringing that up just because, again, you don't expect the 44th ranked team nationally to fall behind by 17 at halftime. Those 2 losses Olympia suffered were to Bishop Snyder and Dr. Phillips. Both those teams are nationally ranked. Dr. Phillips, the other nationally ranked team in the Metro Conference, they're ranked 31. As the launch from the corner, no dice, but doing some hard rebounding work is Pierre getting underneath that basket. And he is blocked, but so was contact made.
Mustangs foul called against number 4, Isaiah Bannister on the hit. His second, the team's first of this half. That will send Claudner Pierre to the line, shooting 2 for the Titans.
First free throw is good. That cuts the lead down to 10.
Of course, remember, Wekiva has led by as much as 20, so between the end of the second quarter and the first 3.5 minutes of the third quarter, the Titans have cut that in half.
And this is the 2022 and first ever Metro Hoops Fest. They just don't call it the Metro Conference Championship Tournament, as the lead remains at 10, and Wekiva pulls down the rebound. This is Hammond going against that full court press. And the Metro Conference certainly has exerted its presence, as Doucette with the ball, contact made. There are, in the Max Preps, all Florida rankings, all classifications among the state of Florida, 7 Metro teams among the top 54.
Claude Pierre is called on his 4th personal foul, the team's 2nd of this half.
So also mention that the Metro Conference actually has 2 teams nationally ranked, Olympia, who's out on the floor, and Dr. Phillips, and score that is for Hampton on the reverse.
Mustang basket by Malachi Hampton.
A beautiful setup by Hammond off the inbound pass, and lead back up to 12. Wekiva answering, Olympia coming out strong, scoring on their first 3 possessions, cutting the lead all the way down to 10. And there's another tray.
3 from Josh Mio. 14 now in the books for him. He has more than half of the total scoring for Olympia.
Olympia 4 of 5 from the field, opening up the second half. So
more action in the backcourt. Wekiva does escape the 10-second call this time.
3.5 remaining. That's Hampton, top of the key, 9-point lead, turnaround. Can't find the range, short. Doucette getting a hand, but can't corral. And now Olympia, not full throttle transition, but several passes set him up in the corner. Score that is for Thomas.
Chisel James to Kevins Charles for 2. And we'll pause for a full timeout called by Olympia.
5 of 6 from the field for Olympia, and a couple of turnovers for Wekiva. And what was a 17-point lead down to 7. Olympia on the charge as Coach Lubin calls a timeout for Wekiva. .13 remaining in the third quarter. First round of the Metro Hoops Fest. The Olympia Titans on the charge. Wekiva, the home team, in the the black jerseys with possession of the ball. A 33-26 lead, but that was 17 at half. A 14-4 run for Olympia to open this second half. That's been spearheaded by great shooting, 5 of 6. Their offense not only finding the mark, but some great passing to set that up. And now a turnover, not a turnover this time, but Wekiva has had a couple turnovers trying to bring that ball up. This time they will not get the turnover, but as you can see, just a lot of trouble getting that ball up. Certainly a change from the first half.
30-second timeout called by Wekiva. So 2 timeouts in a row spent by Wekiva trying to figure out what to do about this full court pressure. We'll be back in a moment.
And welcome back to Mustang Arena as we enter a key stretch of this game. Wekiva, the home team with possession, dark jerseys. They have a 33-26 lead, 2:43 remaining in the third quarter. The winner of this game will take on the winner of Windermere and Edgewater tomorrow. That game being played at Apopka.
And Olympia coming out of the locker room for the second half, and particularly in these last couple game minutes here, has been particularly effective at the full court man-to-man defense.
Yeah,
and now Jamaric Hammond gets called for traveling Titans ball.
Yeah, and that has resulted tangibly in a 14-4 run for Olympia, and that's why it's a key possession. Olympia trailed by 17 at halftime, as many as 20, and now they got a long way to come back. The question is, can they sustain that momentum? And for the time being, yes.
Layup by Jizzle James.
And individually, since James has scored, Wekiva has done an excellent job holding James. That is only his 4th point of the game. James ranked in the national rankings top 100 of every major recruiting ranking.
Foul called against Jizzle James, his first, the team's third.
Averaging over 22 points a game. He certainly has been the face of Olympia as we come back the other way. Slam!
Isaiah Bannister on the Mustang dunk from Livingston.
Jizzle, the only other player for Olympia to score in double digits is Josh Mio. And James has been held to 4 points, but Mio has certainly taken on the slack. And this time, though, it's going to be
Jizzle James for 2. 6 points for him now.
Yeah, Mio has dropped 14 for Olympia. And opportunity for Olympia to continue to cut into that lead.
James with more action on that full court man-to-man pressure.
5-point lead now, and Wekiva staves off getting cut more. Great defense by Doucette. The other end, Davis
Harry
makes
Davis,
the withdrawal.
coast to coast to steal 2.
So the important couple of points for Wekiva gets that lead back up to 3 possessions, and Olympia has to go back to work. No problem.
Mio fading for 2. 20 points of their 32 occurring in this quarter, so that means that in these 8 minutes, Olympia has scored more than they did in the entire first half.
Hammond with the open tray. Connects.
Jamaric Hammond for 3.
So that's only the second tray that Wekiva has taken, but it's important. Lead back up to 8. 45 seconds remaining, creating some space, and float the deuce.
Jizzle James, 2 more. So the last couple of possessions by Olympia and Wekiva, they've traded points about evenly. Wekiva doing it in dazzling style. Olympia maybe a little more conventional, but the points count for the same value.
Yeah, and the lead back down to 6. 20 seconds remaining. What's been a rough quarter for Wekiva. This is Davis. No dice, but doing Windex work. Is Doucette.
Isaiah Bannister draws the foul on the putback attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2 for the Mustangs. The foul is called against Titans. Number 10, Dylan Lightus. That's his first personal foul and the team's 4th.
So Olympia has cut into that lead with spectacular shooting. They are 9 of 11 from the field in this third quarter. .4 seconds remaining. Lead back up to 7. This is Doucette at the line for Wekiva. And that lead now up to 8. So Wekiva, at least for the time being, staving off some more damage being done, some more major damage. Olympia, the shot, that was Lightus, and that'll bring the third quarter to an end. Once again, Olympia ranked 44th in the nation according to the Max Prep ranking, showing that they are here to play and finding their game. 9 of 11 from the field and cutting the lead all the way from 17 down to 8. But Wekiva gets a couple of important possessions and points to close out that third quarter.
Welcome back to Mustang Arena. The Mustangs have the opening possession of the fourth quarter. So the second quarter, 100% belonged to the Mustangs. The third quarter, probably about 2/3 belonged to Olympia. And so now we've got ourselves a ball game going into these last 8 minutes. What looked like it could have been a runaway is not to be, but Wekiva still is in position to pull off what could be one of the most significant upsets of the Central Florida men's basketball season so far. Wekiva taking their time on this opening possession, and now we're going to get a foul on Wekiva. Not the way they wanted to start out this quarter. Foul called against Mustangs number 4, Isaiah Bannister, his third, the team's second of this half.
So 30 seconds into this fourth quarter, another turnover for Wekiva. They turned the ball over only 5 times in that first half. They've turned it over 6 in the second. Underneath, trying to go bank, but no dice. And
traveling on the rebound, Mustangs ball.
Yeah, that was Charles. So again, what was a 17-point lead, as many as 20 for Wekiva, has been cut all the way down to 8 as we begin this fourth quarter. And now a foul.
Hold is called against Olympia's number 23, Sean Owens, his third, the team's fifth. Jamara Cameron returns for the Mustangs.
And so we've talked about the field goal percentage, 9 of 11 by Olympia in that third quarter to cut that lead down to double digits. But they also went from just 3 baskets, 3 field goals made in that first half. They converted to 12 total now. So looking much healthier as Wekiva looking to get that lead, though, back up to double digits. Good start, at least defensively, for Wekiva in this fourth quarter. Certainly they needed that. Now Hammond one-on-one guarded by Charles. Top of the key to Livingston, who sweeps across the middle. Outlet to Livingston. Splash! Plus one!
Profit with 3 and 1. Foul is called against number 31, Cameron James, his first, the team's 6th. And Vosi Profit at the line shooting for the 4-point play.
So Profit with 12 points now. Opportunity for 13, but more important, you just cannot measure the momentum, even though he did not get that free throw. An 11-point lead. That lead is back up to double digits. An opportunity on the steal. Hampton leading the charge, takes it himself, and goes coast to coast.
Hampton steals 2.
And now you're seeing the danger when you fall behind by 17 at halftime. Olympia made a tremendous charge to get that lead under double digits back to 7, but now they're starting to lose ground, and that certainly will help.
Mio for 2. Full court pressure, double team trap. Wekiva in trouble, doesn't want to spend any more timeouts. If they can help it, they get out in transition. There it is, Malachi Hampton to Isaiah Bannister for the Mustang dunk.
So Wekiva
beats the trap and then more.
Wekiva rectifies that bad start. They turned it over on the first possession. Since then, they've scored on 3 consecutive possessions, 3 of 3 from the field, and the lead back up to 13. Winner of this game will take on the winner of Windermere and Edgewater. That game will be at Apopka tomorrow. Olympia, the 44th ranked team in the nation, Max Prep rankings. Does he get the trade? No. Profit grabbing that rebound. Olympia also ranked 6th. All classification state of Florida. The trade, that would have been a dagger if Profit could have connected. Still a 13-point lead, and Wekiva making life difficult for Olympia, getting that ball past half court.
And remember, at this point with a 13-point lead, Wekiva doesn't need unanswered points. They just need to match Olympia possession for the next 5 minutes.
And don't turn the ball over. Be smart with it. Don't make the kind of mistakes which open the door for Olympia. If Olympia does make a rally, you want them to create that own rally. You want to make them work for it. So this is Mio, top of the key, guarded by Hampton.
Mio has 18, so 50% of total scoring. And Livingston got lucky there. He would have been wise to just let that go out of bounds, but he at least manages to get it to deflect off of the Titans.
Yeah, the leading scorer for Olympia coming into this game in terms of points per game is E.J. Jizzle James. He's averaging 22 and change. He is also ranked among the top 100 in all the major college recruiting polls. Wekiva's done an excellent job of covering him, holding him to 8. And there's the turnover. Boy, that would have been another dagger. Opportunity to put another dagger into the heart of Olympia.
And you see Hampton tapping himself on the chest there saying, yep, that's my bad. I should have been ready for that.
But still, again, going back to the individual scoring, Mio has certainly picked up the slack. He's the only other player with double digits. And speaking of Mio, right place, right time to snag that rebound. So you see, Mark, in terms of individual scoring, high-risk, high-reward situation as Hammond.
Jamaric Hammond takes the charge. Called against number 2, Jizzle James, his second, the team's 7th. No bonus shots for offensive fouls, but it turns the ball over to the Mustangs.
When you have a player who's scoring about half of your points, again, Jizzy James averaging 22 and change.
Transition opportunity, there it is! Darius Livingston to Isaiah Bannister for the Mustang dunk. And now that full court pressure that was so effective for Olympia in the third quarter now turns against them as we get a layup by Jizzle James. That transition offense by Wekiva facilitated by the fact that Olympia is leaving so many players away from the half-court set. And now we get a 30-second timeout called by Olympia. Back with the conclusion from Mustang Arena in a moment. Welcome back to Mustang Arena. We've got a potential upset special for you here at Wekiva. This is a game that most objective observers were probably ready to give to Olympia. Coming in, and now Wekiva leads by 13 with 3:38 to go in the fourth quarter, and time starting to run out on Olympia. They were so effective in their comeback effort in the third quarter with that full court man-to-man defense. They forced a number of turnovers, made Wekiva run for every possession, and now it is turning against them. Now they're getting fouls and transition opportunities out of it instead.
Yeah, a 17-point lead cut to 7 in the third quarter by Olympia.
Jizzle James called on his third personal foul, the team's 8th, and that puts the Mustangs into bonus. At the line, shooting 1-1, number 3, Jamaric Hammond. So the last couple of possessions, you've seen Wekiva feed Isaiah Bannister, who's just about the tallest guy on the court, and can get those dunk opportunities when you feed it to him. And that is exactly what Wekiva has done. They've cleaned up their bounce passing from the third quarter, and they have been able to make it work and converted a couple of possessions that have just really kept the Titans from doing anything meaningful to close the gap. And now, with Wekiva only having 2 fouls on the board, they've still got 4 fouls to give. Olympia's already in the bonus and knocking on the door of double bonus, so they're going to have to be really careful for the rest of the game.
Wekiva scored 6 consecutive points, and now they have an opportunity to increase that lead again. Olympia with 8 fouls, so Wekiva in bonus the rest of the way.
Foul called against Joey Evans, his third, the team's 9th. The Mustangs continue into bonus. Jamaric Hammond shooting 1-1 once again. Checking into the game for the Titans, number 12, LaVord Thomas. And also coming in, number 5, Josh Mio.
This is the 2022 and very first ever Metro Hoops Fest, or if you prefer, it's just basically the Metro Conference Western Division Championship Tournament. Single eliminations in terms of that championship. Every team guaranteed 3 games, though. Second free throw, no good. Scramble, picked up by Profit. Lowers the shoulder on the drive, and no dice, but continues to put the heat on Olympia. We will get the foul on Doucette, though.
Foul called against Isaiah Bannister, his 4th personal foul, the team's 3rd.
So the winner of this game will advance to take on the winner of Windermere and Edgewater tomorrow at Apopka. But for Wekiva, they are going for a 4th victory in their last 5 games as Mio stops, and he does draw the foul. A quick whistle. And Wekiva with the victory would also reach 500 for the first time at 7-7.
Foul is called against number 0, Malachi Hampton, his 2nd, the team's 4th.
So Wekiva has defeated, during that stretch, Edgewater, Timber Creek, and then last night, Ocoee. That was the opener, the play-in round of this Metro Hoops Fest. And, of course, we talked about this in the last couple of games, Mark. That run where, again, they're going for their 4th win in 5 games and looking to even their record at 500, 7-7. For the first time has coincided with Malachi Hampton, the 6'4" junior guard/forward, returning to the lineup from a hand injury. So 2:45 remaining, and now Wekiva going to something which probably is not their best suit. That's more of a deliberate pace, but they have gotten better as well. Again, during that recent stretch, they've been more smooth and cohesive in the situation of trying to take time off the clock and looking for that better shot, an uncontested shot as opposed to a quick shot. So we'll go to the break. Wekiva with the 13-point lead. Winner again takes on Windermere, or winner of Edgewater.
Welcome back to Mustang Arena for the last 2.5 minutes of this contest that has gone a lot differently than I think a lot of outside observers thought it would. Wekiva has had a great game, perhaps save for the 3rd quarter where Olympia really was able to put the brakes on them.
Yeah, Wekiva has really been the team in control and forced the action for 3 of the 4 quarters so far. Again, Wekiva comes in with a 6-7 record, looking to go to 500 for the first time and win its 4th game over the last 5. As Livingston drives, stops, pops in, makes the withdrawal.
Darius Livingston for 2, and about 30 seconds came off the clock during that possession, so Wekiva is being strategic here with clock management.
And another turnover for Olympia.
Traveling Mustangs ball.
The winner of this game takes on the winner of Windermere and Edgewater tomorrow at Apopka. This is the Metro Hoops Fest. But again, Wekiva, if they can pull off this victory against the 2nd seed, interception, ball comes loose, and the 44th ranked team in the nation according to Max Preps, that's the Olympia Titans, certainly it would be a huge victory for them moving forward and entering the last third of the season.
Isaiah Bannister is called on his 5th personal foul. He retires from the game with 12 points for the Mustangs.
As you mentioned, Mark, 12 points for Doucette is now lost, but that's also a big loss for Wekiva. Doucette's a big body, takes up a lot of room, and understands how to position himself, even if he doesn't get the rebound, allowing space for his other team to operate. So Wekiva, a minute 45 remaining, 100 and 5 seconds left. They have to hold on to a 15-point lead. And want to also bring up, as we got a stoppage now, some refs directing some traffic. Wekiva trying to get a player in, Davis, and now they do.
Yeah, Davis is coming in for Bannister, who fouled out just now.
Team-wise, Wekiva's played great defense, sensational. Other than that third quarter, they have held Olympia to under 20%. The other end, that ball will be Wekiva's possession, no dice. But individually, they have done a great job holding E.J. Jizzy James to only 8 points. He's number 19 in the Florida Hoops class of 2023 rankings. And the only other player that has scored double digits for points per game for Olympia is Mio. He has picked up the slack for 20, but has had no help. As we enter a minute 20 now, the two-man game between Profit and Hammond. That's Mio guarding Profit. Now Hampton takes it left of the key. A minute 10, 15-point lead for Wekiva. Olympia's got to force some action, and we're probably looking at maybe the last 10, 12 seconds. They still have an opportunity to win this game. And there is something they needed. They needed that turnover, but Wekiva took about 15 seconds off the clock. We're now down to 1 minute. So Olympia going back to work. They got to score, and they got to score quickly. Under a minute, down by 15. Turnover, loose ball. No, not a turnover.
That was a block shot with an offensive rebound.
Okay. So I think that's just about going to do it, though, Mark. Time is only 35 seconds remaining. Let's chalk this one up to Wekiva. No dice on the rebound. And there's some contact and an obvious foul. Frustration, I think, on Olympia's side.
Jamarick Hammond takes the charge. That's foul is called against number 1, Joey Evans. That's his 5th personal foul, and he retires from the game with 2 points for the Titans.
So Wekiva scores 11 straight points, starting two and a half minutes into the game, broke a rally, turning a 5-3 deficit into a lead. They never let go. Olympia on a charge in the third quarter, shooting 9 of 11, cut the lead from 17 to 7. But again, too much of a deficit for them to sustain that into the third quarter. And then a 6-0 run by Wekiva midway through that third quarter, got the lead back up to double digits and secured the victory. Wekiva will advance to the second round, takes on the winner of Windermere and Edgewater tomorrow at Apopka in the 2022 Metro Hoops Fest.
That takes us to the end of our first of the doubleheader. The Mustangs pull off the upset. 55-40 is the final score. That means that Wekiva advances to the championship semifinal, where they will play at 2 o'clock tomorrow at Apopka against the winner of Edgewater versus Windermere. Olympia will drop down to the consolation semifinal, where they will play against whoever loses that next game between Edgewater and Windermere. That game will be at 11 a.m. tomorrow at Apopka. So again, Olympia plays again at 11, Wekiva plays at 2. Both of those games tomorrow afternoon at Apopka. Coming up next, Dr. Phillips takes on the West Orange Warriors in our last quarterfinal game here in the 2022 Orange County Metro Conference Tournament. I want to thank everyone for tuning in on Varsity Sports Network, as well as YouTube and the NFHS Network. Thanks also to Keith Dickerson and his entire team at Wekiva TV Broadcast Production for providing the video aspects of today's game. And thanks to D. Thomas, probably a lot more on Ontavius and the whole crew at Varsity Sports Network, as well as their interns for providing some support for us as well. For Neil Fisher, this is Mark Barchi, the voice of the Mustangs and sports information director here at Wekiva High School. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Wekiva Sports, and bookmark WekivaMustangs.com for all of your scores, schedules, and more. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Game 2, Dr. Phillips versus West Orange, coming up next. If you're on Varsity Sports Network, keep it right there. If you are on NFHS or YouTube, make sure you switch to the other live stream. We'll meet you in 15 minutes.